Hello, and welcome to Outside the Zeitgeist, an opinion podcast presented by Mook Media. Please be aware that the opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those of the host platform. Outside the Zeitgeist is funded by people like you, for some reason. And now, here are your hosts, Greg and Charles.
All right, and this is episode number 14 of Outside the Zeitgeist. I am your resident misanthrope, Charles.
And I am your resident skeptic, Greg.
Cheers, Greg.
Cheers, Charles.
And on the show today, we have that lovely... What?
Okay.
We have that lovely voice that you heard in the intro. Everybody say hello to Red, so say hello, Red.
Hello, darlings.
Before we forget, don't forget to subscribe, share, comment, and most importantly, dislike the video so you can express the feeling is mutual.
You will never memorize that.
I will eventually memorize that.
No.
Eventually!
I have no faith in you.
Fuck you.
And now let's get into the nightmare fuel of the day. What do you got first, Greg?
My first thing is a lighter story as far as nightmare fuel is, but apparently the Washington Post and New York Times had to retract reports that said that Giuliani was warned by FBI that he was a target of Russian disinformation operation. I find it very interesting that they both retracted reports, and this is all being after the fact that all of this stuff was being claimed. You know, and I doubt if I wasn't paying attention to stuff, I would have even heard about this.
Yeah, I got a few things that you probably didn't hear about, like Archer Pulaski, Mr. Where is it? There we go. That guy. Everybody remembers that guy, right? Had another visit. Yeah, so apparently the Canadian courts put out basically a warrant saying that the police can go in and do their thing, and anybody who stands in their way can get arrested.
Oh, that's nice.
And Pulaski is not allowed to petition the court or to try and go against it or anything, or try to fight it in court. Basically, that's what the court order says, as I understand it.
Oh, so straight up.
Fuck you, bend over. Yeah. Just
going straight to the authoritarian playbook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, blame Canada. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what happens. He's got a legal team. He's raising money. People are, siding with him and so forth. But, I have no faith in people.
Neither do I. I mean, especially I'm hearing more authoritarian type reports where there was a teacher that called Floyd a criminal, and he's been suspended now. Although it is proven that Floyd was a criminal. He did have a criminal background.
Facts optional. Facts are optional. It's all about feelings.
He was definitely on some sort of drugs.
Say that again, Red.
Facts optional. It's all about feelings. Do you have the right ones? Can you show it off to others?
Well,
That's just society, culture at large, what we've turned into. Another authoritarian move, Federal Reserve says it wants things to cost more for the Americans because we want inflation, apparently.
Yeah, because reasons? I mean,
They made a very interesting point in the article I was reading. If the average inflation is 3% and it goes up 3%, or rather they said 2%, but they were saying the average is 3%. Mm-hmm. So if it goes up 2%, the cost of goods, but the person's salary is actually going up 3, 4, or 5%, and they said this all with a big maybe. And I'm also thinking about this at the time.
Big maybes, yeah.
Yeah, big maybes. I'm thinking about guaranteed. This. How many states have already mandated $15 an hour by the time we hit 2023 or 2025? Because these are predictable, non-negotiable increases to the lowest wages that are possible. So if you're getting $1 a year, eventually, that dollar's percentage point decreases on how much it's worth. Mm-hmm. But I cannot see that that is going to outpace actual inflation itself.
Yeah, so, the Federal Reserve, I got the book right there, The Creature from Jekyll Island. Mm-hmm. Check out for those of you that haven't, check out the documentary Century of Enslavement. And I was actually speaking to somebody, yesterday or the day before, and this person was asking me, isn't the Federal Reserve a government institution? No, none of the central banks are government institutions. They're all private institutions. Look and see who runs all the central banks, and you're going to find some, let's just call it similarities. So when you hear these little things, oh, we need to raise inflation because we make our exports more valuable, blah blah blah, blah. It's all horseshit.
I think it's all horseshit. I also think that even if we beat inflation, just from the dollar being devalued and causing prices to go up, there's also the fact that if all of these mandatory increases in minimum wages are increasing across the board, the companies that run these all these retail locations and such, and any other product or services that are being offered by majority of companies,
right?
They're going to increase the price of those not because of inflation, but because they're going to have to pay more money just to.
Yeah, it is because of inflation. It's just a
okay.
So I mean, this is one of those buzzwords that we're going to get into in episode 19. So make sure you guys keep watching for that. But inflation doesn't actually mean what people think it means. Most people think that inflation means that the prices go up. No, what inflation means is you're inflating the supply of something. So by having there more dollars, you're inflating the amount of dollars there are, and that's what causes the prices to go up.
What I'm talking about is not the fact that we've added such a metric shit ton of dollars, which we have.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the fact that even if we didn't do that, if there was no minimum wage being increased, the prices would be going up.
Yeah.
I'm saying that because of the minimum wage going up at the same time as we're having all these dollars being created, the companies are just going to increase the prices of their products from that alone. Anything else will be, we should add a couple more dollars onto it because of that as well. Costco's already doing it.
It's a risk mitigation on inflation to just increase prices to make sure that you're not undermining your basis to produce, right?
Well, I mean,
because you're going to experience increases in your production costs.
Well, yeah, but it's actually, there's multiple ways of approaching it. You have what Costco's doing is 20 sheets less per, what's it called, per roll. Of paper towel.
Yep.
You have increasing the prices of the item, and then you have reducing costs. I mean, it's I like to refer to many things in life as the tetrahedron, the various tetrahedrons of life, and the different ways that people approach things. So it's what really fucks things over is what I call the Rockefeller scheme. And the Rockefeller scheme is when he, you see this happen a lot of times, and this is how corporations get really huge. It's you undercut, go in debt, and then you either sell off the company for a lot of money because it's got a huge value, like that SPAC that we talked about on Thursday.
That's what they did to Huffman Cruz.
Yeah, well, I mean, what Rockefeller did was he was selling, what was it, gas? He was selling gasoline, undercutting everybody, going in debt until he put everybody else out of business, and then he skyrocketed the prices, didn't pay his people more money, as I understand it. But speaking of gas, do you hear about the great big gas bill, which I guess was a gas bill? It's being reported as a gas bill. Oh, no, it's not being reported at all. Have you heard about that, Greg?
I will tell you, I have not heard about it.
Have you heard about it, Red?
Gas news.
I'm dying to hear.
So there's this company called Colonial, and they have a gas pipeline that runs from Texas to New Jersey.
Texas to New Jersey?
Yeah, and by way of North Carolina. So in Huntersville, North Carolina.
It doesn't go through Pennsylvania.
No.
Interesting.
So in Huntersville, North Carolina, the pipe broke. And it is being declared the worst gas leak in history.
God.
It was discovered by a couple of kids on their ATVs. And this pipeline has been designated by the Department of Transportation as a public and environmental safety risk. And yet, people want to build pipelines. Oh, yeah, we're going to build pipelines because then that means we don't have to look. No, you have to. If you want to build pipelines from point A to point B, you have to spend a lot of money maintaining those pipelines. That's why when you have the pipeline coming from Canada and all this other shit, I knew you're just asking for ecological disasters because nobody's going to maintain it. It's just going to be there, and when it breaks, and then the company, we're sorry.
This is a common problem I've seen with government and companies in general over the last, I would say 30 years of my lifetime, but just looking at history, I historically see that there's no one that cares about infrastructure in any substantive way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, pipelines, what makes pipelines so bad is that they're actually ecologically worse than just transporting the fuel from point A to point B, because you need to spend fuel for people to constantly run up and down the entire length of pipeline, checking it periodically, weekly, fixing anything that comes wrong. And then if something does go wrong, guarantee you none of them made design any pipelines with any kind of bypasses or stoppage points or anything like that, so that they can repair any
So it sounds like
that's just because it's so cheap to do it the other way.
I mean, it sounds like this is really a design problem, right? To not have the bypasses and not have the easy transport up and down along the pipeline. I mean, that can be remedied with better engineering and design.
I mean, they probably do have like pumping stations, pumping checkpoints, and maybe you can cut it off there. But
there's an overall problem you always see in a lot of these big projects, like when it comes to the highways or these pipelines, electrical lines.
They all need maintenance.
Yes, so
lots and lots of maintenance.
Classically, I see a lot of government programs where they get all these roads built, they get all these highways built, and then down the line, they just don't ever put the money that they say they're putting into it. Because I hear them say they're putting money into these things.
My government's bloated and we gotta stop
But
putting too
I'll
much
tell you
money
right
into
now,
it.
Route 1, right over there, still sucks. It still has potholes here and there. Okay, all the side roads that I use, they never get maintained. Where does the money go? One of the things I've always said is that...
Well, it goes to 13, what was it, Lincoln, whatever the fuck they were.
1619...
No, the Mercury, was Lincoln Mercury, whatever the fuck car that was, the town car. Yeah, it goes into 13 town cars so that the, what's it called, the executives of the Garden State Parkway can address whatever situation on emergency.
Oh, yeah. We just have bad spending. This is just the...
No, the problem is that we don't have any spending. We just have...
No. What I'm saying, I know what you're saying.
We have really good grifting. That's what the problem is.
What I'm saying, and I'm trying to get the point across, is that we've created so many small committee type projects that we just divert funding from what should be the main points, which is infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Infrastructure should be one of the things that we spend the most money on because it needs constant maintenance. Mm-hmm. Just to maintain the existing way it is. Because, obviously we've designed better ways of making roads and other such things, but we don't put the money into it. We take the money out of it and we say we'll put it into this project. And I constantly just see that these projects, or rather these smaller committees that are now taking the money, they never get canceled. Or they never have a set period of time that they run for.
Part of the problem too is you have all this whole funding scheme. I mean, there is no ideal way of a funding scheme for anything. But what you see a lot is in these different departments, and you see this a lot in corporations as well. Is if we don't spend our target amount of money, we're not going to get the same amount of money next year, and then who knows what the fuck's going to go on, and blah 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 blah. What's up, Red?
I mean, the whole purpose of the bureaucracy is to first maintain itself and second to enlarge itself. So of course it's not going to necessarily focus on mission or on how to improve itself or even how to make itself more efficient, which might cause it to get smaller, but just to entrench the interest further and parasitize it to just...
Well, I wouldn't agree that its purpose is to enlarge itself. I would say that its purpose is to adapt, which sometimes means enlarging itself. But also sometimes that means shrinking itself as well.
Almost always it's enlarging. Enlarging the budget, enlarging the scope,
right, but
enlarging.
Don't confuse what happens with what needs to happen.
Oh, correct.
I see that all the time in schools. Mm-hmm. You'll hear school teachers talk about the fact that they have a group or there's a club, and they have to spend all the money they're given. For some reason, they have to spend all the money. I've never heard people say, let's not spend all the money. Say, we have to spend all the money we're given. Otherwise, as you said before, they're not going to get the same amount of money the next year. But I swear, there needs to be accountants in these situations because people are just spending money to spend money.
Well, where that thinking shows its weakness is that whole design is around the whole idea that nothing ever fails. That's what that whole
so the too big to fail philosophy?
No, not the too big to fail, but the whole funding scheme is all based around the idea that shit does not happen. That shit is constant. It happens the same thing over and over and over
or
again.
If it fails, it's because there wasn't enough money in it.
Ooh, yeah,
that's another big problem. Speaking of those types of things,
I mean, it's wise to put away resources for a rainy day. Any person should, is wise to do that. But unfortunately, and you see this in many different aspects of life with people with like eating disorders and you know, many things like collections, FOMO, right? It's all the fear that you're not going to have something when you want it or when you need it. So that's why you have these, you know, that's why these funding schedules are such a problem, because
It's our friend in northern Jersey. He has that problem.
mm,
But along that same line with money and cash and all that, who do you think made the most money during the first 100 days under Biden?
the billionaires, Bill Gates is definitely one of them.
Absolutely, they did. In fact, they made 195 billion, according to some reports. And
All
I
because
mean,
that's what the Federal Reserve prints up money and basically hands it over to the billionaires through roundabout legal means, or they're not questionable at all. I mean, it's not like we're buying up corporate bonds or junk debt or anything like that.
absolutely not. Not to be outdone, the public, or at least the public that doesn't really understand how money works, already have a petition of 2 million signatures to get monthly checks of $2,000.
Well, now in that there's not enough information there for me to say one way or another, because where does the money come from? If it comes from tax dollars, probably not a good idea. Maybe not. But if it comes from freshly printed money, okay. I mean, if we're gonna print up money like crazy, let's make sure everybody gets it, not just the five or six
If we were
people.
going to do that, I would say that we could have already done that. We could have put the money directly into the people's pockets, or we could have just said we're just not going to collect money as taxes.
Well, here, let me explain something how it works. Now, don't get all excited because I know you're a Jew.
Oh my gosh!
I would have
You
loved
got coins!
I got coins. You want to rub them together?
No,
Here's-
I've already done that.
So let's explain how this works and why the money printing and how you don't have to do anything just to get fucked over.
Oh,
Okay?
absolutely not.
Here, hold on to these, Greg.
Oh, thank you. I now have 50 cents, people. 50 cents.
All right, we're not gonna
I'm going
use
to start
those.
a business.
We're not going to use those. Give me those back.
Now I'm broke.
I'm an Indian giver. Okay, so
Does that
This-
make you BIPOC?
all right, this is a penny, and we'll say that it's not a penny. That's actually a coin that's worth $1.
Okay.
And you and I, we own this 50-50, right?
Yep.
But having each owning half of one solid thing isn't a good idea. So you and I get together and we make another coin.
Oh my gosh.
Another identical
do that?
coin.
How
So
do
now
we do
there's
it?
one for you, and then there's one for me. So now we combined have a value of $1.
Well, hold up. I think I created the means of production in this.
Oh, you created me in the production of it? Fuck you.
Not
I did.
you. No.
No, I did. This is why I have. Look, I have two coins
shit.
now.
Damn, you
And
pulled a fast
these
one on
three
me.
coins together have a value of $1, which means I have 2/3 of $1, and you, by doing nothing, have 1/3. Oh no, wait! Now you have a quarter because I made another.
Damn.
Now you've got a. Oh,
Damn.
see?
You see, I was gonna do it slow. I was gonna do it in such a way that you wouldn't even notice. But you were like, straight up, yo, Greg. Did I tell you that I made 4 of them and I only gave you 1 and made you believe that it was worth half of the dollar?
But
You're a trickster. Don't believe anything this asshole says.
so that's how your money gets that's how your wealth gets taken from you, and that's why the Federal Reserve printing up money.
So am I a half knot on the other side here?
Yeah, fuck you, Red. You don't
I'm
you don't
sorry,
get anything.
you're not part of the system.
You're a disembodied voice. You don't need any money. You don't need earthly possessions.
What did we base
Oh,
that system
man.
on? What were we backing it with?
Oh, nothing. It was just there. I mean, like, not everything is backed. Like, our currency right now is fiat currency. I mean,
Full faith and credit.
yep.
Oh yeah.
It's a religious principle.
Greg, you want to bat at it like a kitten?
I'm done with that. More disturbing things. Apparently, China is paying newspapers to have articles that are advertisements, but most certainly only look like actual real articles. And they're not telling people that they are advertisements.
Yeah, that's been done for a while. I mean, you've seen that a lot. Inside scoops on White House things. No, they're fucking press releases and so forth. It's
I saw a lot of these years ago. These fake articles, because it's very easy to tell it's a fake article because it uses wording in such a way that it's like, that's interesting. Why are you throwing certain types of subjects at me
Mm-hmm.
to get me to try and buy into something. And then at the very bottom, in tiny words, it says, advertisement paid for by blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? BuzzFeed was notorious for that. That's basically all their
100%.
articles were.
Their entire thing is op-ed, basically,
Mm-hmm.
and just advertisements.
Yeah. So, what else we got? Oh, so a bunch of people are freaking out in New York.
Oh, really?
And New York wants to sue the government, the federal government, because they lost a seat in the House. Because there's only one reason why is because all the people that died because of Cuomo.
Oh, really? I thought it was all the rich people leaving the city because he was increasing the taxes.
It was all the people dying because of Cuomo.
I'm about telling the truth, man.
Apparently, they were short by only 89 people. I think
It's great.
How many people died in those retirement homes that Cuomo sent all the old people back to?
15,000?
Yeah, that's close to 89. I mean, obviously, that's...
The margin was
COVID.
that narrow? Wow.
Yeah, that's why they're suing. They want to recount, blah, 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 blah. They're not going to get it because Trump didn't get a recount, and even though that count's still going on in Arizona, right?
Oh, yeah. California also lost a seat.
Yeah.
And Texas gained 2 seats. I wonder
Was
what all
it
these...
I thought it was Minnesota that gained 2 seats.
I thought it was Texas.
Yeah.
Maybe they both did.
No, one state gained 2 seats. I know Texas gained 1 seat, and I thought
Let me double check. I
Minnesota-
could have sworn
Minnesota
I
or
heard Texas
Wisconsin.
gained 2 seats.
some state in the fucking weirdo land up in the north center, and I can say that because I've been there, and you people are fucking weird.
I think the term you're looking for is red state. Yeah.
Yeah, the red.
Yep. Texas population swells with census, gaining 2 more
Oh,
House
okay,
seats.
so it was Texas that gained 2. All right. Well, fuck me then.
So, amazing. It just goes to show how people are flocking to Texas, where they had that terrible power problem.
Mhm.
But
Well, I
it's
mean,
a lot freer there.
so I mean, this brings to mind the whole idea. This whole false left-right paradigm, right? The donkey fin and whatnot, and how one side just acts bad so that people can run to the other side, and once all the people are on the other side, then they can be the ones that act bad. What do you got, Red?
I'm kind of wondering, I mean, is there a shifting paradigm away from animals towards populism versus elitists, the status quo, the entrenched status quo?
Well, I mean, if you look at trends, and this is why one thing I said about the election last year, where realistically the election was the people that flew the Democrat banner were the conservatives, and the people that flew the Republican banner were the liberals, because I mean,
The
for
ideas
one,
they were representing.
I mean, well, for one thing, the whole thing that Biden was saying is nothing's going to change. That's conservative speak right there.
It's pretty
Exactly.
conservative.
And
They're also historically racist, in my opinion.
the Democrats?
Yes.
Well, yeah, originally they were a racist party. But
That's pretty conservative, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, that's not really, I would consider that on that
Not
spectrum.
in the sense where I say conservative. I'm saying that they're not changing their ideals.
Right. We'll get into that more in the buzzwords episode.
Absolutely.
But you're seeing populism take over the Republican Party, it seems. But again, it only seems that way because it's been the same play. For as long as I can remember, one side's in power and the other side's the underdog, saying all the things that are the truth, and the side that's quote in power is the one doing all the crazy shit. Then as soon as they flipped, then the script flips right away. It's like working on the script. They're working in unison
Sure.
and whatnot.
I mean, the wall is like that too, because if you go back 10 years, Democrats were fighting to have a wall, and Republicans were saying, "Oh, we don't want to pay for that type
everybody.
of stuff."
What was it? Bush was building the wall. Obama was building the wall. Trump was building the wall. Biden was building the wall.
We've been building a wall.
Now-
we should get like China and just have a great wall.
Now, and let it fall into disrepair. And we got to keep the Mongols out. Now, notice you're seeing right now in the quote leftist media, the right quote right media, that people are freaking out because Biden's taking people's homes to build a wall. So is Trump. So is Obama. So it's called eminent domain. It's been
They've been
going on
doing
for
that.
a while, people.
They've been doing that for a while. In fact, I remember there were stories in the right media, the left media, talking about the fact that people were losing homes. Okay, they were talking about the fact that land was being flooded for some reason or another because of the way they were building the wall. It's all the same thing.
There was one guy's house that, it was a farm, and his home was on one side of the wall, and his barn was on the other side of the wall. They split his property, and the barn caught on fire, and there was no way he can get to it without having to take this long roundabout way. So it burned down.
Why didn't he just tunnel under the wall? Look, I'm hearing there's always all these ways of getting over the wall. He could have had a ladder system.
Yeah,
he could have done a tunnel system.
Knotted rope.
He could have even had a helicopter.
Well, yeah, he could have. Or, you just bring the Kool-Aid Man and have him break through it.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of shit that's been going on and, no duh, that big server farm that was built in wherever the fuck by, the NSA or whatever, and, we promise we're not going to look at your information, even though Snowden revealed to everybody they were.
Oh, yeah.
And, that place that consumes, 2 million gallons of potable water per day.
Pause one moment. Another excellent journalist who is now no longer allowed to report on things.
Snowden? Oh,
Not
yeah.
really a journalist, but he's exposing information, making it public.
Oh, yeah, and Assange is still in prison. There's people keeping an eye on how long Assange is being tortured.
The truth is not allowed to be spoken. But, moving on.
But, so yeah, the FBI's been going through everybody's communications without a warrant. No shock there. I mean, remember, the rules are for you peons, not for the people in charge. And that's how it's always been.
Soon we'll be there, too.
Yeah.
FBI also raided a home of someone in Alaska, a couple, who they thought looked like a woman who stole Nancy Pelosi's laptop. And she keeps claiming that the laptop has nothing of importance on it, and that, however, if it did get exposed, it could leak important information. There seems to be a contradictory statement.
Well, yeah.
She's claiming that it's not important, yet at the same time she's claiming it is important. And the fact that they have the FBI looking into it also makes me believe that there's probably something that is very important on the laptop, but they're just not talking about it.
Well, it's probably just being investigated by, what was that one that investigated the DNC servers? CloudStrike? Or whatever the fuck company that was?
Not Ninja.
By all means, don't look at Hunter's laptop.
Ninja's the group of the people doing the Arizona election. So I just thought it was funny.
What was that, Red?
By all means, don't look at Hunter's laptop, though.
Yeah.
No. That's why they didn't take it from Giuliani.
Yeah. We were talking about election. Actually, what was it? Newsweek came out with an apology for Dominion because apparently Dominion was getting on them, and they didn't have a good. Apparently, it seemed like they didn't have a good legal case against them. Well, Dominion had a good case against them for defamation, based on what was out there. Now, it's why. If I gave a shit about you fucking tards listening, I would say, why would you allow a company with proprietary software to do your elections? In fact, why have electronic stuff do the elections in the first place? But, we are humans and we're all fucking lazy shit. So.
Yes, I am very lazy. Except when I'm working. Then I am not lazy at all.
I'm only lazy about being lazy. And then I go get lazy.
Ah. Speaking of...
But here's the thing. How do you determine that Newsweek engaged in defamation? Don't you have to examine whether the assertions are truthful? By all means, let's examine what was going on with the Dominion machines and examine whether the statements made by Newsweek were truthful. Because if they were, then that's an affirmative defense to a defamation suit.
Right, and then you have to make the distinction based on whether they were truthful based on knowledge that was available, whether they were conclusory, or whether they were opinion. So that all has to be taken into consideration when you're talking about a defamation lawsuit.
You could just be the New York Times and just make statements and then claim that the people who made the statements were saying opinion, and then say that the people who made the statements that they said were opinion are actually just reporters who don't do opinion pieces and actually report the truth.
Or you just have anonymous sources for everything. What do you got, Red?
I am so psyched about the James O'Keefe lawsuit against the New York Times. I'll be watching that closely.
I'm excited to see what they do against CNN.
Go, James O'Keefe. Love
Twitter.
you.
We got a fan here.
Woo!
But speaking of reporting things, I mean, people misreport things about themselves, like juror number 52 on the Chauvin case, who, oh yeah, I can be impartial, and then he comes out and speaks, and Twitter finds pictures of him a year ago wearing Black Lives Matter t-shirt, and apparently a shirt that says, don't step on my neck.
Don't step on my neck, okay. Media does terrible job of doing everything. They've been doing a terrible job of covering for all the bad ratings that Biden has.
Well, see, this is the thing.
I mean, you need to be clear on what you mean by media. Do you mean the traditional corporate media?
MSM.
Because they all suck.
Media.
They all should go out of business. However, burgeoning new media, you guys and your bigger siblings and Tim Pool and Scott Adams and elsewhere,
There's
that's
definitely,
worthwhile.
Amongst the independent media, there is definitely a lot of really good sources. There's a lot of less bias. I can't say anybody is unbiased because it's impossible to be unbiased because there's always some bias there, but there's always people that strive to be as little biased as possible.
Or at least be honest about their biases.
Sure.
Here's the perspective from which I'm
I'd rather
coming.
someone be biased, but also tell me, by the way, I'm a biased person.
Yeah.
My opinions come from the fact that I hold these views, and so that's how I look at things. But
so now let's be perfectly key. Well, I'll be Henry, particularly because I don't like being Frank because he's got a really small dick. But
poor Frank.
I know. Well, me personally, I like having a small one. I'll just rub against the walls and let her pleasure herself later on after I get off. But, anyways, this is nothing new, right? What goes on in the media, it's another one of those things where it's just it's a repeated revelation. You get all these in modern times anymore. It's a repeated, there's politicians are corrupt. Oh, who would have thought? Oh, the media is lying to us. Who would have thought? It's something that goes on.
History repeats itself.
Right. It goes on over and over and over again. Newspapers and televisions and everything, they've been lying as soon as they become big enough for people to want to dump money and get their message across.
I mean, something's different now in that there's internet, right? There are other ways of gaining and distributing information, assuming the censors are not, completely choking everything off, right?
So the internet is a double-edged sword. What's really great about the internet is that it connects us, and so it is very easy to transmit information.
And what's really bad about the internet is that it connects us, and it's very easy to transmit information.
So it's so good at letting us do those two things that what happens is people, as in real life, as we have a group that we meet up with, right? How often do you and I and Charles find a group that doesn't have at least one of us where we play board games?
What's your question? What?
No, I'm making a statement. I'm making a statement about real life. Is that often we will be at the same board game meetups.
What he's saying is that it's easier. The internet has made it easier for like minds to identify one another and coalesce.
Now, sometimes I'll go out off to gaming conventions and I'll drift away and I want to play a new game and I'll meet some new people. But they already like board games, so I would say that it's likely that they're already in that same group. And eventually, since I don't go to conventions every single freaking week or even every month, it's likely that I'll find the same people that I already enjoy playing games with and continue to only play games with them because they tend to be good challenges or they're good at games or I just enjoy their company. But that's the same thing with the internet is because it's so good at connecting with people. Once you've found a group that you want to only connect with, then you're going to start ignoring other groups or start ignoring opinions that tend to say things that you don't like.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing, too, is like, for me, because I'm politically nomadic, way to shake the camera, that's my job. But, I'm not going to really say, my political ideology is this.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, that's my political leanings right there. So I hang around, but I do hang around all different groups on the internet just to see what everybody's saying and what everybody's talking about and so forth. And I just see echo chambers a lot over and over and over again, and nobody's like, and I challenge everybody in all of them just because I like being an asshole.
Echo chambers have always existed, though.
They're never going to get away from it. And
it just so happens I think the internet tends to, like with money, sometimes it tends to amplify.
Well, I mean, I think what a lot of it is when we think about the internet is not that any of this stuff is new. It's just that it's a medium that we're not used to. So it's like the portal effect, right? When you go through a doorway or whatever, sometimes you ever have that where you're walking from one room to another, and all of a sudden you can't remember why you walked into that room?
I'm not yet at that point in my life, thank God.
So I believe it's called the portal effect. Well, it's not for your age. It's just something that happens to everybody. It's this whole thing, like when you wake up and your mind is cleared and you don't remember what you were dreaming and everything like that. So that's why that's part of why the internet makes this whole thing seem new to a bunch of people. What do you got, Red?
Just observation that we're still very new at internet, and internet is still on its own relatively new. We're learning how to do this for the first time with very few models on which to rely. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of fumbling, a lot of paradigm breaking and shifting.
I think what's new about the internet is that it's a new way of getting a message out to people, and I want to say that people have found really good ways of doing it.
A new meritocracy is arising. You're seeing it happen right before our eyes. That corporate media is just flailing.
Well, I mean,
to some
everything is a
extent, yeah, it
meritocracy in
is.
some ways.
We have meritocracy built into the culture of America, but what we are seeing on the internet is not a meritocracy. Someone has already gotten to a position where they can control a good portion of what happens on the internet because we've found ways. When I was in school, Google was a search engine. It was a search engine that I used because it was the best search engine. And I say best not because I knew that it was, quote unquote, the best, but if I were to compare it to AOL or Yahoo or Ask Jeeves or whatever that thing is.
Netscape Navigator.
Netscape Navigator. So Google got me more relevant information more quickly. And at that time, I would say that was because I don't know how they did it, but they had a dedicated team of people that were...
No, it's the algorithm Google uses. So they use a matrix algorithm based on whatever you search for and what other people have searched for, like they have searched for the same thing, what they're going to click on. So they kind of use that to kind of guide people to what they're actually looking for.
But my problem with Google nowadays is, and I discovered this many years ago, is that Google doesn't act how I want it to. I want Google to be more of an index, okay? Similar to a library. If I go to a library, I want the index to tell me where I can get all the information on a subject.
That's the problem with the internet in general, is that it's all these random connectivity points and, .com, .org, .d, whatever, and, .gov, and it's really just this mishmash of, you have to be able to address what you're looking for.
And because these searches now are informed by your past searches and the searches of people similar to you, now it routes people to their bubbles, their preferred way of sense-making. I prefer a wokey sense of sense-making. Okay, then we'll direct you to those kinds of results and that sort of thing. So it's reinforcing bubbles. It's reinforcing polarization.
There's that, but there's also the problem with the fact that people have discovered how the back end of the programming works in such that, okay, they know that if they put certain hashtags on their pages, they can increase how likely it is that something's going to appear.
Hashtag blow me.
Yes.
So you're talking about the optimization, and couple that the Google services for optimizing your results. So you're directing it from both sides.
There's another problem on top of that. So Google has adjusted their algorithm to do that, and they've also adjusted the fact that they've created what's called a blacklist to disinclude certain types of things. And then also the fact that Google will never show you more than 1,000 search results for any one particular search entry, which really bothers me.
What's really a pain in the dick is when I'm looking for very uncommon information. I can't find what I'm looking for. I used to be able to find it.
Yes.
Now I have a hard time finding stuff that's not part of. I always get redirected. Oh, did you mean this more popular thing? No, I didn't mean that at all. And so Google.
I hate that. That's my least favorite.
Google. More and more, I've been finding that Google as a search engine has become useless because the specific information that I'm looking for, even stuff that has no political leanings one way or another, I just can't find through Google. Whereas before I could.
I definitely was able to find more obscure websites in 2004 2004 to 2008 when I was in college, and that was because the internet was still much newer at that time, and I would say that they were still optimizing the internet to make certain they came up with results, but I wouldn't have said that the goal of using Google was to make certain that specific results were only the ones that turned up.
Right.
And now I can say without a doubt that if you use Google to search for something, there is always
It's curated.
Yes, I don't like that it's curated in that regard. I'd rather be less curated than it currently is.
Yeah. You got any more nightmare fuel, by the way?
Just one last thing.
All right, what do you got?
Don't go dancing at weddings in D.C. because they have now, after we are more than a year into this, decided that it is illegal to dance or stand at a wedding in D.C., including cocktail hour. You have to be sitting. So if you're not sitting at the table, bartender, get me a whiskey sour and a Pinot Grigio to go with it. You can't stand.
This is the same place that I believe they passed legislation to allow kids to get vaccinations. This was before.
Oh, you mean without the parents knowing about it?
Knowledge or consent, yeah. And they can make a informed consent, which I'm pretty sure is hey, you're a kid, you have to listen to what I'm telling you because what I'm telling you is the truth and blah blah blah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's informed consent.
Wonderful.
That's not coercion. Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I mean, when it comes to people, my only things on their decisions, as long as there's no force, coercion, or deception, I'm fine. But we would never coerce them. Yeah, bullshit. I mean. And, you can say this about anything as well, but because I read the statute and what's not in the statute because it just uses making an informed decision, it doesn't say anything about how that kid comes to their informed decision, which is the problem. So
the wonderful teacher who has a particular way of thinking is going to help them to make that decision.
Oh, yeah. Like, hey, I think you're trans. You should probably get a sex change even though you're 7. It's all horseshit. But before we get into the main topic, because I know you mentioned teacher was a good segue, but so I was talking about different circles I hang around, and there's this one girl in this, woman, and...
is she hot?
I don't know.
Oh.
No. Because words. I mean, the words on the screen look pretty shapely. The E looks like a natural E.
Are you telling me that you can't tell what a person looks like based on words alone?
No. That's why
I can't either.
That's why we got red here.
Woo!
I mean, I can't tell what someone's even trying to say sometimes when they use words in text form without connotations.
Blah, 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 blah.
Exactly.
So anyway, this her grandfather is dying, and they're trying to raise money for funeral costs. And so I told her I would put a link to the PayPal that she's trying to get money through. So I'll put the link in the description. I'll remember. So if you feel like tossing her a buck or two, feel free. Apparently, she's been in this part of this community that I hang around in for a while. I just don't really pay attention to the people in the community too much because I don't like people.
I know.
Wishing her well in her hardship.
So there's that. But now let's get on to the main topic of the episode, which is the education system. Who educates the educators? Who educated this teacher to say to the student, hey, you know what? I think you're trans and you should probably get a sex change.
Oh, the wokeists.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a general thing. Because before you have the modern day Bible of fuck you unless you're gay, trans, or whatever, you had the previous Bible of fuck you unless you're Christian, Muslim, Jew, whatever. Well, the Jews don't really have a Bible, but you get the idea.
Yes,
right?
we do.
Torah.
Yeah, we do. Gregory, we got a Bible?
Isn't there a testament? An Old Testament of sorts or something?
AKA
you know what?
Torah?
Just because you two fuckers are here, I should have brought a shitload of bacon and just started eating in front of you two.
I would have eaten it too. I'm a terrible Jew.
Bad
Heathen.
Jew.
Terrible.
But
I would have even put some cheddar cheese on it.
Oh, God.
Oh.
So, I mean, one thing, because, like I've mentioned before, I work with, occasionally now, but I used to work with kids more, tutoring them and whatnot, trying to...
Those kids are going to have nightmares.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna have nightmares after fucking dealing with them. But anyways, I'm trying to help them to like understand what education and everything is really all about. And one of the things I tell people that first and foremost, a diploma is a piece of paper saying that you believe that the world, or at least some part of the world, is the way somebody else has told you. And this is how most people operate on. They never do anything outside of that external input of, oh, I passed the test the teacher gave me. The teacher is some monolith of everything, and therefore I'm good to go. And this is where the fault of education starts, and where the breakdown of everything begins.
I was under the impression that a diploma was a piece of paper that said I spent X amount of time at this space learning from this group, and that it didn't actually represent anything other than the fact that somehow I had spent X amount of time at this location learning from these fools or wise men.
Yeah, I mean, I've had my time in corporate America, and these people, like I said before, I've dropped out of college twice, but these people with diplomas and everything, fucking incompetent.
Very incompetent.
There's more than one reason why they would say D for diploma. Just because you have a degree from somewhere. And actually, so let me bring this up. So I don't know if you're familiar with the channel Shadiversity.
No.
And so Shadiversity is a channel where this guy, he's got an engineering background, and he analyzes weapons, both mystical and and real, and how effective they actually are. And there's a whole back and forth going on about between him and like the internet, because he said nunchucks are shit as a weapon.
Nunchucks are shit.
Yeah, they are shit. The only reason why I own a pair of nunchucks is so I can train myself in how to take a hit. I mean, I have a long sword, I have the bow staff, I have nunchucks. Nunchucks are for only one reason: learn to take a hit. That's it. But people are trying to say, oh, I got so much experience, this, that, and the other thing. And he basically put out the same thing that I did, which was, but although he said it more eloquently, because I fucking hate people and I just blur about words. But that this whole idea of just because somebody's got experience in something, or just because somebody has, a degree or diploma or whatever, does not necessarily mean they actually know what the fuck they're talking about. And I've said this when we're talking about fallacies, right? Because we talked about the appeal to authority.
Yeah.
That truth is truth. It doesn't matter where it comes from. So if somebody makes, me being a blithering idiot, I can make a statement that's completely true, and the 40-year tenured college professor could be completely fucking wrong. Case in point, when I went back to college a few years ago, I took this little bullshit course just because I needed a credit. It was about plastics, and I was like, oh, I know about materials and plastics and so forth, somewhat. So I take this course, and he's talking about how different plastics are tested, and then he mentions ductile strength, and then he starts going on to something else, and I said, you forgot tensile strength. And he was like, oh yeah, that's right, tensile. And he's like, wait, who said that? So, I pointed out and whatnot, and I'm like, yeah, I'm familiar with materials considerations and this, that, and the other thing. But then we were talking about fracking, and I was talking about how bad of an idea fracking is. And he was like, oh no, it's cheaper gas. What the hell was that? Oh.
Silence!
Silence, Dave!
Sorry.
But I was saying, well, they use these different chemicals, which seeps into the groundwater, gets into people's water streams, turns their water flammable, not to mention the fact that you're reducing the structural integrity of the ground, so you're going to have, it's like, oh yeah, it's a great idea, let's take something out of the ground and not really put anything back there. But he tried to pull, he was basically pulling the I'm the teacher, although not explicitly, more implicitly, but he's like, oh no, fracking's good, this, that, and the other thing. So I ended the conversation with, okay, and I gave him that look of, yeah, just watch, you're going to be eating your words before you even know it. And I made sure all the students there, because, they're all young kids and they don't really have experience.
Not going to comment on this.
I made sure I gave them the look. I made sure that they saw that. I gave them the look that, yeah, fuck you, I know more than you, And now look at how people are reacting to fracking.
Sure.
You know.
Although I'm not going to comment on that, but I will comment on the martial arts thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen a lot of people talk about it. I watched Joe Rogan, and he was talking about it with some guy that was an expert in fighting and such.
Right.
And they were talking about the fact that in a lot of cases, there is a plethora of just ineffective martial arts.
Oh, yeah.
That don't stand up to more
Modern.
more modern martial arts, such as like I think Krav Maga is one of the more effective ones.
Krav Maga, it has its drawbacks as well. I mean, the whole thing with fighting in general is that you can't limit yourself to form. You learn the form so that you can become formless. You learn the strength so that you can learn how to be gentle. You have to learn to focus so that you can be aware of your surroundings. You learn one thing to learn the opposite.
Bruce Lee, be the water.
Yeah, except for I prefer to be the wind because you can't see the wind coming until it's too late.
Yeah, I've seen you break wind. I would agree.
I'll promise I'll pay for that chair.
So there is a constant problem, and it's not just amongst education, but it is in sort of in any organization where you have
well, no, but that's
these power structures.
Right, but that's the idea of education in general, right? You have it's the what came before must come again.
Right. So that's a problem in that. So that goes against sort of how I would say science is supposed to work, in which you say, okay, this works this way, well, I'm going to keep testing, and if sometimes I find out there is consistency where it doesn't work this way, I now create a new hypothesis as to why it doesn't work this way in these situations, but works this way in the other situations the rest of the time.
Right.
And that is I think that's a problem where more of like a sin of pride that people have is that they learn something and they take it to heart to the point where they just believe it without a doubt.
Right, because people want, by just natural traits, Dunning-Kruger effect. People want something that they feel is stable and is not going to change.
Right. So people don't like instability of anything. So if people were to ever realize that at any given time, they're in New Jersey, it's unlikely that we will ever have an earthquake. Okay, but sometime in the future, there could be a time when there could be.
Well, there was a small one when I was a kid.
Small ones don't impact daily life to the point where it does, like in California,
right,
where they have a major fault line. Okay, but just keeping that in mind, the fact of the matter is, it could be that in the future we have a major earthquake of some kind, and we would be completely unprepared for such a situation, and people's worlds would be flipped upside down because they would be looking for people to blame as to why it occurred and how we couldn't have stopped it or something to that matter. Yeah. And that's the same with a lot of just ideas. So if you have a teacher and they're teaching somebody something and they are firmly in belief that they are correct on all their subjects and that they couldn't possibly be outdone by a student, right? Then they're going to continue to teach in that way,
right? Because that's a typical, again, appeal to authority. But now the thing I wanted to get to is somebody learns this, right, and then they start teaching it exactly to somebody else without ever adapting or anything like that because they view it as stable. And you see this in like education in general, martial arts, like we're talking. You also see this in things like parenting and whatnot, where parents typically just raise their children how they were raised because they don't think critically about how they were raised. And one thing I noticed too, so whenever I have work with students, I always tell students the same thing. Your education is 90% what you do and 10% of what you get from somebody like a teacher or something like that. If you're only listening to information that somebody else is putting out, or only reading just one book, you're not seeing the whole picture. You're seeing a very limited scope of everything. And a lot of my students didn't like me because I wasn't really interested in teaching them the material so much as to how to learn the material.
I think that's why my friend and our friend in the north has problems with how I explain things. Because I'm not trying to give him answers. I'm trying to give him the ability to get to the answer on his own. I personally, when I try to teach things, I want people to be able to find a way of, I'm not going to include 100% of all the information because I include enough information so that when someone can fill in the rest with what isn't being said just by looking at what's there.
Right.
Now, sometimes I have to go through more than what I'd like to because some people learn at different rates than others. Especially when it comes to board games, some of the concepts in them are just extremely difficult in some of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, learning. So there's a lot of misconceptions about learning in general. We'll save that for a little bit later in the episode. But
sure.
You see people. It seems to me now. I haven't really bothered to take explicit notes and whatnot, but it seems to me that the people that are more extroverted are the people that don't really do a whole lot more on their own to educate themselves, and the people that are introverted do because just by the very nature of being extroverted or introverted. Extroverted, you're relying on other people for your state of being, whereas introverted, you're relying on yourself for state of being. Now, me, I'm a very introverted person. I didn't give a shit what any of my teachers said. I didn't give a shit about my grades. I just gave a shit about the information, and I would ask, take their answer, and then go find out more for myself.
I mean, it could be said that introversion, extroversion, that's one aspect of personality, but if you examine the Jordan Peterson-esque type analysis, that is a different parameter of personality. That would be the parameter of agreeableness. Because you can be extroverted and agreeable, and extroverted and disagreeable, and it's not a matter of are you being rude, it's a matter of are you prepared to kind of run against the prevalent view.
Right, but the point I'm making is that if you're extroverted, how far are you going to go beyond what somebody else gives you unless that other person actually tells you to go look up for more?
You're saying that extroversion makes you more predisposed to rely on the information presented by others as opposed to a more introverted oriented person who would rely on the information they generated as a result of, say, research.
That's my hypothesis, yes.
Do you see me as extroverted or introverted?
I see you as more introverted because, much like me, you don't give a fuck.
Introverted but loud.
So I've taken a number of...
She's calling you out, Greg.
That's fine. I'm always loud. I had to speak over my mother. My mother was very loud. And Jewish mothers, they are strong-willed people, as you know.
And loud.
And loud. So I've taken a number of online tests that I don't put much stock in because every time I take some of these online tests, I try to take a wide variety of different tests on different personality types and such, and it never comes across that it says that I'm introverted, which I find very, very interesting because I never... What were you going to say?
How are they defining introversion? I think that there's a lot of seemingly common terms that people are using very differently for varied reasons.
About the actual meaning of introverted, not the connotated idea of introverted.
Yeah, because there's introversion and introspection, and it took me a while to understand the distinction between those two in very practical terms, right?
Introversion in the technical term means, so vert meaning turn, like a vertex. So introvert, so what turns you or what makes you change is your own internal mechanisms.
Well, then there's people who are something of a hybrid of the two. Right?
Yeah, there are hybrids as well as...
situational introverts or what have you.
Yeah, I took one of those personality tests too. Apparently, I'm like the rare type, the rarest of the rare type or whatever.
Oh, really?
It detected a personality?
Yeah, that's...
Oh, my God.
That was my first thing was like, wow, I have a personality. And they're like, yeah, you do. And then you're a really rare one. And I'm like, oh.
Most of the ones I usually say I'm like INTJ or something like that, or INT.
Yeah.
Usually I see I and INT.
Yeah, it's IN. Yeah, it's IN something is like the rarest one.
I always find it's like
I don't give a fuck.
There's one letter that is always different on it, I think, or I don't pay enough attention.
Yeah, it's like TP or TJ.
Yeah, you're talking about the Myers-Briggs.
Yeah, the Myers-Briggs,
yes.
Which can test consistently over time, but your particular mood at a given moment can affect some of your answers, and if you're in a borderline position, it could flip one of the letters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean...
But the first three are usually almost always the same on any of the ones
Yeah, ENTJ here.
Yeah. So...
Who is teaching the educators?
Well, that's the thing is so people, because many people inherently, they don't really do their own learning, and they just rely on what they get on school, and therefore, and by proxy, rely on what they're getting from somebody else. And they get the degree, and okay, that's it. But then they go on looking for some other authoritative figure to just be the one that gives them information.
Is this why the CDC is getting its guidelines from teachers?
I mean,
I don't know. That was an article title I saw,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, I thought that was hilarious.
But it winds up being this whole perpetuation of the, again, I can say the just because it applies, the appeal to authority, where it's people basing their education or their view of their education based on approval of somebody else. So then they go the rest of their lives considering everything they know, or just get everything they know because it's approved by some other big institutionalized thing.
There's also another problem, is that a lot of people will learn something,
Mm-hmm.
and then they take for granted that that's all there is to learn about it,
Mm-hmm.
and then they never consider that there's always the fact that it could be wrong information,
Mm-hmm.
or that there could be more to learn.
Right.
In video games, to get someone to the point where they can play the game fully functioning without needing any extra steps, they've over time introduced a lot of these just little mechanics that introduce you to one mechanic at a time.
Yeah, and you see the same thing in board games too.
Sure. What I like about that is that you're considering the person is a complete noob at the game,
Mm-hmm.
and they have no idea what they're supposed to be doing. So you introduce them to a concept that, okay, if you hit A and B, you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, you tell them, well, we taught you this, but really you should be doing now A and B, and then you should be pushing up at the same time at the same.
Right.
So they give you these little pieces of information, which eventually counteract sometimes the old information that they told you,
Mm-hmm.
because they just wanted to get you into the game to learn the basic concepts.
Right, and then you have to adapt, and it's basically the idea that you have to adapt and go deeper into what you already know.
Like our Mechs and Minions game we're playing on
Mm-hmm.
Tuesdays. They gave us only a little bit of information of how we could play the game.
Right.
And every further episode into the game, I would say, they introduce a new mechanic that we're allowed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now we could have done those mechanics earlier in the game, but that would have made sometimes the game unbalanced.
Well, yeah, especially since you got new abilities that really
Sure.
unlock and so forth.
And so I find that possibly I might not have considered that there were more abilities in the game, because I'm relying on the game to give me all the information
Mm-hmm.
in the packet that they provide called the rules. Although this is a legacy game, so they're introducing new rules as you go down and down and down.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell.
And
how
also
many,
the rules that you. So this is the one thing, right? Like, so over the past decade, we've seen this concerted effort to attack people that that under this identity of gamers, right?
Sure.
Like it's some kind of culture. It's
What is a culture?
no, it's not a culture. A gamer is somebody that plays games. That's it.
You're talking about the most basic variety of the word gamer.
Right. And now, if you want to refer to like a culture of people that have been playing games and have reached like a certain level because they have so much experience, there's different terminology we can use that. But this whole idea of gamers, has been under attack, and games have been under attack for a long time as well.
Except, I want to
Go ahead.
You are older than me, so
Right.
you might have more knowledge than me on that. But I want to point out that if you were to go back 20 years, I don't think I would have called me a gamer. I would have.
Yeah, I mean, there was no-
probably referred to me as a nerd or.
Yeah, I
or
mean,
something like that.
I was a nerd and so forth. I mean, I remember when
I-
Gygax was the work of the devil.
I
you
think
know?
gamer itself is.
It's a stupid, lazy term.
Well, it is a lazy term, but I think it refers to, in general, it just refers to someone who likes the game.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in particular. in
Right,
culture-
that's the thing. It's just somebody that likes the game. And you know who likes to play games? A lot of people like to play games. You know what other games they like to play? Some people like to play basketball.
But they're not a gamer.
Yeah, they're not called gamers for some reason, because apparently basketball is not a game that you call somebody a gamer
It's
for.
not,
I mean, what are the rules on this? It's kind of hazy. But
that brings me to another word.
well,
Okay.
yeah. Well, we can actually we should save that for 19. But
Really?
Yeah, we'll save it. The point I wanted to bring out is that people that play, the people that as a hobby will play video games or board games and whatnot. There's been a concerted effort for the past decade or so to attack them, and the reason I would propose why some people promote this is that because in order to, if one of your hobbies is playing games, chances are you may also have a hobby of doing puzzles as well, and these are hobbies that
be a puzzler.
Or puzzling, but these are hobbies that require you to learn new systems and adapt to them, and that's what people in general don't like. People in general want drones that are either like them or under them, so that they can feel either comforted by company or be able to control somebody else. And that's why the introvert and nerds and so forth, the outcasts, tend to do better because one, they're being outcast and you're not really in the club of everybody taking the shortcut, but two, you're not relying. People that are in the outcasts don't rely on other people because we've learned that other people are shit. And the same thing goes with education.
Right, do you have any thoughts on that? People being shit?
She let out a little noise.
Yes.
Oh, excuse me. I need to set my toy aside. I mean, it's the human condition to be shitly. That's our base condition. The question is, what are we going to do to elevate ourselves? Are we going along what parameter, and of what value is that parameter? And gaming provides a very cool, very provocative, very safe, but also very open environment in which to explore different strategies. And what's also fun is to watch your fellow opponents, is that an oxymoron? I don't know. But
Sure,
to watch your
absolutely.
Fellow competitors.
watch your fellow gamers struggle with it too, and watch them freak out when you just fuck them, and observe yourself in that meta awareness freak out when they fuck you. And at the end of the game, there's a conclusion, and everybody has a laugh. It's been great. That's what makes it wonderful. Plus all the table talk.
I mean, you were. I don't think you were laughing in that last game of Dwellings of Eldervale.
Well, good. I mean,
no, please.
You guys. You guys. Like I said, it's one thing when it's close and you're trash talking each other, but when you're running away with, I mean, let me ask you this. Because you like games where people can just run away early on.
I love games where someone can run away early. Let me explain.
Because then you sit back and you smack talk the rest of the game at the table.
But that's like watching a movie and the hero being the bad guy in the first act, and then just watching the rest of the movie because reasons.
In that first game of Dwellings, we did team play. You and our friend of the North. You guys ran away with the game so far. I could see from the beginning when I wasn't able to get any of my dwellings down to get major amounts of points, and you dominated the board. But it left me with a sour feeling when we were done.
Yeah, but did I trash talk you then?
Yes.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. Your trash talking is not in how you say things; it's in how you do things.
Oh, I have trash talking body language. Is that what you're saying?
Definitely do. Not only that, it's in what you.
You're full of shit.
I'm not full of shit, man. Okay, it's not that you're trash
watching
talking.
You undergo a meltdown. I really enjoy that.
Who?
Me.
Wait, who do you like watching when they have a meltdown?
Both of you, but Gregory tends to be funnier.
Thank you very much. I try to provide humor in all moments of my life.
Oh, you've seen me have a meltdown, please.
Absolutely. But you were just like, what you were doing, the way you were doing it in the game, that is how you trash talk people.
I trash talk my mind.
You don't actually trash talk. It's just what you do. The one game where you purposefully
I'm just like, I can do a thing. Well, that was funny.
That's what I'm saying.
You
do things just to purposefully sabotage things.
Yeah, but see, that was funny because we were all close to each other.
Even if it's unnecessary, you do it. That is how you trash talk against people, and that's what you did in that first game of Dwellings.
You know what?
You were like, I'm going to keep on doing this. Keep on doing this.
No, my favorite is when Charles is explaining a game, and then he pulls a maneuver. Everybody calls him on it. Wait a minute, that's not in the rules. Oh,
no, I'm not.
Yeah, it is in the rules. I just forgot to tell you.
No,
that's a burn.
Oh yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, that's our one friend there that does that all the time. You're
So do
confusing me
you.
with a much older
No, you do that
gentleman.
too. You do that
No,
too.
I
You
explain
did
rules.
that
People just don't listen.
yesterday.
That's not true, Charles.
Yeah, people don't
How
listen.
many times do you read rules
Listen,
and I find
I
one
don't
thing
even
that
listen.
you do wrong?
I don't like the sound of my voice even, so I don't blame you guys.
That's why you leave the rules to me. It's because I
I like the sound of your voice even less.
Thank you.
But so getting back to our show topic, but so yeah, I don't even know what was I said that we were gonna we're talking about that, but what was I said we were gonna come back to that I wanted to come back to?
Learning. The comfort of familiarity, of getting canned solutions, and the expediency of it.
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing, right? Is like everybody is like, oh, I got a degree from here, alumni and this, that, and the other thing, and people just kind of, oh, I had the same degree, oh, we must think the same, and
It becomes part of the personality. People love to incorporate things that have nothing to do with personality into their personality, and they love to use it as ways of automatically saying I'm right and you're wrong. It's a very common human
and they
trait.
use that. Oh, well, I got a degree in so and so, blah 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 blah, and my penis is 10 inches long from the ground. But
But this is also another problem. But it translates differently into media, in which so I'll read a newspaper and I'll recognize the newspaper put out something that was wrong. They put out bad information. Consistently, they put out bad information, but then later, I might forget, quote unquote, that they put out bad information.
Gelman amnesia. Gelman
as
amnesia.
a way to defend a point of mine, which is really bad. If you're going to say, like, the New York Times is a trash newspaper, you can point out reliably that they have X, Y, and Z article that are just opinion bias nonsense that they're trying to push as actual real fact-worthy articles, and then you go back to someone in an argument, and then you use New York Times article to try and prove your point. At that point, you've either forgotten that they had problems with previous articles,
right,
or you're just trying to win the argument at that point, and you're using. It's one of those things. I find it's part of this appeal to authority type of fallacy.
So let me get, because I just remembered a couple things I want to talk about.
Sure.
So one of the things that I was hearing about recently was Michael Crispin Miller, and I don't know if you've heard about him, but he is the guy. He had a class that was basically taught critical thinking skills, right? And the whole point of his class was, well, you got to look up the information and decide for yourself, and and it's basically the same thing that I say. You got to look up all sides of a story and decide.
So he didn't want you to come to a conclusion based on what he said.
Right, he did. And now, I watched an interview with him recently, and he was talking about he got fired from the school, and he's suing the school, and the allegations against him were that he was making that he was being what was it, like transphobic or some bullshit like that.
Sure.
So basically, he teaches his class. It's all about look up the information and so forth. And sometimes his students challenge him on stuff, and he just says, okay, well, let's look at this information. Let's look what the other side's saying and so forth. And there's this one student that comes late to the class, and apparently it was a she wanted to be addressed as he or one way or the other. I don't remember the details.
Right.
And he's that might be confusing, guys, but he said, oh, well, I'll just refer to you by your name. And the school said that by referring to this person by their name rather than the pronoun that they wanted, that he was being transphobic, and they fired him. And apparently there was this whole whisper campaign, this whole coordination by the other people of the same department to try and get rid of him. And he managed to get, and again, this is according to his account, and this is all quarters if I remember all this correctly because I didn't take good notes, but he got a hold of emails that they were all emailing each other, just basically making shit up about him. Are you looking him up, Michael Crispin Miller?
Mark Crispin Miller.
Mark Crispin Miller, there we go.
You got the wrong name, man. Mark Crispin Miller.
Yeah, so he's taking them to court, and this is it just goes to show you how just because somebody's a teacher doesn't mean they're not completely full of shit. What do you say?
I'm seeing something else from
September, yes.
Behavioral review as a result of complaint made about his allegedly sharing with his students a view that masks may be ineffective against the spread of
yeah,
COVID.
that's what it was. So he said he one student was asking and he was saying, well, here, look at this information, and then you decide for yourself. So,
this is great stuff here. Wikipedia, keep on being the way you are.
But now these other teachers, these other professors, right? So they're professors, but this one student that came up late to his class, and I think like a couple others, they're talking to these other professors, but it doesn't matter the fact that he's a professor. It matters that these other ones are the ones that these students agree with, right? So there's this whole campaign. He got fired. Now he's challenging it in court or so forth. And he's got like all these letters from students, and I've had that before. Well, not like in this case. I mean, I've had students come before and it's like, "Oh, you taught me how to do that." And I'm just like, "Oh, whatever." But
this guy sounds like a really intelligent individual.
Yeah, he basically teaches the same idea in his course, and that is find all the information and look over all the information and decide for yourself. And that's really what education is. And I just want to take a second to point out that most of the degrees nowadays are completely and utter horseshit.
Absolutely.
I mean, gender studies. I mean, that's the low hanging fruit of the bullshit degrees. But business and so forth.
How many people are getting gender studies degrees? Because I always hear a lot of conservative talking points where they're talking about these useless gender studies degrees.
So
and I think that's.
Gender studies.
What the fuck is that? How does that help you get
Gender
any
studies
work?
is like this very narrowly tailored and very cherry-picked view on psychology and sociology and so forth.
What it really is a woke bastion in the school to support yet another parameter of grievance studies, right? Because it drives.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Grievance studies.
Anything ending in the word studies. If you could study the actual subject matter, you would have.
Yeah.
This is a dilution of something frequently oriented along some ideological lines. So nope.
But it's bad enough you have like these business management degrees and all these degrees that basically say, oh, here's one aspect of life that you should already know or have learned about because you're a fucking adult now. So, and we're going to make a whole course on that because you're a fucking stupid adult because you probably went to keggers for all of your high school life.
It's funny about business management because when I was in college, I wanted to get a business degree because I wanted to open up my own business. Mm-hmm. And I'm sort of at the point where I am starting to open up my own business. I'm doing my whole eBay thing and everything.
Right.
As I said, I invest in Pokemon cards.
Yay.
Well, anyways, I never thought management was the way. So there's a lot of ways you can use the word manage, okay? And the way I think a lot of people look at when they see business management is they think they're learning how to be some sort of manager.
Because they're learning how to be the boss.
Right. They think they're learning to be the boss.
This degree and most other degrees like it are all about one thing. You're spending money to try and get network connections. That's and a lot of these.
But what I learned in the management courses that I took, business management isn't about learning to be the boss. It's about learning how
the finances.
Yes, it's just.
It's how to balance your checkbook.
The basics of what it would require that you need to know in order to make certain that you can manage a business. Mm-hmm. Essentially, if you're going to own an individual business, what would you need to be managing on a daily basis? Okay, you need to manage your expenses. You need to manage your employees. You need to manage your product itself.
And this is all shit people can find on their own within like a day's research. And just maybe going around talking to people.
I'm not certain I agree with that, but I definitely think within 5 minutes of looking on Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever browser you want to use, that you can get enough information to get a basic understanding of what it is that you would need to do in business. The actual execution of those things is something completely different. Because there's something that they can't teach you in college or universities is how to manage people.
Yeah, soft skills.
Those are skills that you can only learn through actually trying to manage actual people.
Well, that's the skills that theoretically you learn dealing with the horrors of high school.
No. The horrors of high school I learned was that people suck. People need to leave me alone, and I don't want to talk to you because you suck.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean.
Although this is probably why I took a public speaking course in college, because I realized that I was bad at publicly speaking. And so I took a course that was completely contrary to how I would want to do, because I hate giving public speeches.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. A lot of these things are, oh well, you didn't learn through observation, so I was going to charge you money to explain to the things that you didn't learn through observation. And
it was probably the best course I took in college, I would say.
But that does incorporate the things like public speaking and whatnot, and a lot of these bullshit degrees, which are really just ways of people getting money and putting on the facade that there are more jobs out there than there actually are. I mean, even if you look in the sciences, right? The hard sciences are one of the few actual courses of study, right? Hard sciences, literature and language, because then you're learning, like different aspects of communication and so forth. And even like communication theory.
I don't believe I actually got any of that in my literature courses.
But like even if you look at the hard sciences, realistically, chemistry and biology are just science. It's like aspects of physics for people that don't want to learn all the physics.
Sure.
That's what they are.
It's funny.
I mean, chemistry is based off of quantum mechanics, right? Biology is just physics on a larger scale.
Wait, but when did we discover the idea of quantum mechanics as a term?
Talking like late 1800s, I believe.
Right. And
I mean, that's when the period, whenever the periodic table, because it was a quantum physicist that came up with the periodic table.
What I'm saying is, okay, so the idea of quantum mechanics and all that was only in the last
couple hundred years.
Yeah, last couple hundred years.
Right.
And I find with almost any term like that, as it takes a longer period of time, especially quantum mechanics is very. I want to say it's abstract in some regard, but it's rooted in
when you start learning quantum mechanics, you start understanding how uncertain everything in the universe actually is.
Which is something people hate. Hate learning.
Yeah,
they hate learning how uncertain anything.
Because a lot of quantum mechanics is based off of statistics, right? Because you talk about a particle and
real statistics.
And right, so particle has mass, it has charge, and it has all these other particles with mass and charge, and all these different forces are going to happen, and you can't predict all of them because then you talk about like magnetic spin, and all this.
Well, first
shit.
of all, this subject matter is hard. Mm-hmm. 2, it's abstract. 3, it requires effort to really digest it and come to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And then beyond that, it requires that people think better. And generally, people are not good at thinking. That's why there's comfort in the familiar.
Well, people
and what is already pre-digested for you, which is a lot of what you're talking about.
Many people aren't really good at conceptualizing outside of what they already understand. Like, this is one problem I have in math. In math books, right? Here's another bullshit thing. I got a math book now that I'm reading because I teach myself and I refresh stuff. So
okay.
this on linear algebra and differential equations, and it's saying, oh, punch into this math software and see what happens. No,
what? No.
That's not what I buy a book for.
No. What's the equation so I can do the physical
right.
math?
What's the concept and whatnot?
I use a stupid calculator when I don't want to do the tiny little decimal bullshit.
And another thing I'll see in math books especially is, oh, here's this tool. Here's how it's used. Invent this other tool and try to use it to solve this problem.
No.
Now I can understand, like, on one hand, I can understand the whole idea of people wanting to discover things. But if I wanted to discover math for myself, I wouldn't have bought a book. I would just I would turn it to fucking Newton or whatever and start reinventing calculus and whatever. When I buy a book, what I'm trying to do is play catch up to the rest of the world. I don't need to reinvent the fucking wheel. And you see that a lot. I've seen it in a lot of math books.
I was on something I rarely do, but I was on a date a number of years back.
Mm-hmm.
When I learned about how the Common Core math was being taught.
Oh God, that.
And
what a nightmare.
I was reading it. The woman was explaining to me how her daughter was being taught Common Core, and I'm like, why are there so many extra steps being given to these students to get from A to B? And I felt like they were bureaucratizing math. I'm being serious here because bureaucracy is how you can take A and B and insert C in between the two letters so that way you can go A, C, B. And then someone says, oh no, we need to bureaucratize it one more step. And they go, okay, now we have A to C to D to back to B. Then someone says, no, well, we can't have that. We got to do A to C to D to F to get to B. It's the most ridiculous form of math I've ever seen.
I will say there is a lot of taught in school, and even this is when, like when I was in school, I think I might have been taught how to do a square root on your own, but
without a square root,
I had to kind of refigure it out. But I see a lot of like how to find like lowest common denominators. Oh, you just got to look at it and figure it out. No, there's a couple different ways, and there's ways that you can actually write it all out and explain. And that that doesn't really get taught a lot. When I teach this kids about that, I'm like, wow, I've never been shown this before, and but you need, math is like, when you're solving a math problem, it's like writing an English paper. You need your topic, writing a paragraph. You need your topic sentence, all the steps that provide the support for that topic sentence, and then you need a conclusion. It's the same way in math. It's just a different language.
It's very interesting about that. When I was in second grade, we were learning how to tell time.
Mm-hmm. What would you tell it?
The teacher did a piss poor job at it because I taught myself how to tell time on the clocks that we use.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of bad teachers, in my opinion, in the systems. And they might, I always hear teachers complaining about the fact that they don't get paid enough, but sometimes I wonder if teachers have actually learned enough to do the teaching that they say they can do.
Yeah, but that goes back around to the very beginning of, people just being taught and knows the right answer when told. You can regurgitate the information. There you go. You're an expert now, and that just doesn't fly. And besides that, the whole idea of relying on anybody else for anything, especially your own education, is just fucking stupid. I wouldn't rely on Greg for shit. I mean, look at him. I wouldn't rely on Red for anything, even no matter how much I like her.
What if I take my clothes off, though?
Don't tempt me.
I can't rely on you for anything because you're always missing 5 rules in a book.
So are you.
No, I miss 1.
No, you missed 4 rules. I'm sorry. You're slightly better than me. All right, so let's do this real quick. I don't even know if we have time for
one
this.
closing thought on what you were talking about, because I was listening to the whole discussion.
Yeah, sure.
And it would be great to be able to circulate out teachers, like the ones who are ineffective. And the biggest barrier to doing so are the teachers' unions themselves.
Yeah.
I would love to bust the unions.
That's a bigger problem with
and I would
unions in
love to
general,
bust the school districts by having money follow the students.
Well, the thing is that it also becomes a double-edged sword, and there's a lot of people oversimplify that issue as well, because there's they wanted to get rid of me as a teacher because I actually made my students learn, and I didn't give everybody passing grades just for showing up. So if I had a union behind me, I would have been stronger. But I had apathy behind me. You want to fire me? Fine, fucking fire me.
For this, man.
So all right, so we are going to do this really quick. This is another one of Greg's piece of artwork.
Very, very old. This is from 2016. This is a piece I call Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, I was really big into doing goggles or glasses with characters. So I started this piece with the big, strong, swoopy line that forms the face and
you
the
like
neck.
strong, swoopy lines, don't you?
Well, yes, but I also like doing. At this time in my art career, I was starting a piece and just seeing where the lines would take me, and I still do that to some extent. But in this case, I put the line down. I was like, oh, let me add a few more lines. And so after I drew the first strong line,
mm-hmm.
I did a couple. I did another swoop line on the side that you can see where it forms the nose. And that wasn't a fully formed line, so I started adding circles to it, and I said, let's make this into a face. And then I decided that the face had to be in front of a big scene in the background, because I think at that time I realized I was too flat on my images. People were commenting on it, and I thought, let me add more to it. So I wanted to put a sort of industrial factory kind thing
mm-hmm.
further in the distance to try and create depth, even though I think it doesn't necessarily do it as well as I'd like it to. It still sort of looks like it's in the distance and that the face is really close.
All right, so unfortunately that's all we can talk about that because
fuck
we're
you.
running out of time. We should probably, you know what, we might want to do these things on our extras. So we're going to actually start recording an extras clip now, and these extras are going to be on exclusively on Minds, BitChute, Rumble, and Locals. So if you're not following us on any of those, do that as well. But yeah, that's it for this episode. Be sure to check out our next episode, which is titled More, Betterer Back Buildings.
Part
Or
2!
not. Or not. You know, fuck you either way.
With that said, once again, I am Greg.
And I am Charles.
Remember to never question.
Never ask for proof.
And always believe what you're told by the news and the politicians.
No matter what. Say goodbye, Red.
Bye!
Now go back to sleep, fuckers. What is this? There we go. Good night, fellow human. You'll wake up tomorrow to cause more destruction and bring much more sorrow. You'll go out and smile and pretend you are good. But once you get crossed, you'll don a black hood. You'll maim and you'll rend all while you pretend that you are some kind of hero. You can't face the truth and you'll stay aloof to the fact that you're a zero. You'll sit and stay glued to a spoon-feeding tube so that you can believe you're the best. You'll obey and be bribed by a campaigner's lies. All throughout the COVID murder fest.